Hi, everyone. This is Dr. Gayle Carson. Welcome to Living Regret Free, a program that shows you how to live a better and more joyful life. As an added bonus, I invite you to listen to an introduction to my Mindset Matters program, which ties into this so well. Go to www.sobmindset.com. It's free, and I know you will enjoy it. If you'd like to contact me personally, drop me a line at gaylecarson13@gmail.com or go to my website, www.spunkyoldbroad.com, and sign up for my weekly newsletter.
My guest today is Kathi Laughman, and she specializes in overcoming the unexpected and rescuing plans that have gone awry. She's a best-selling author, inspirational speaker, and member of the Forbes Coaches Council. Her mission is to help people see and achieve more value in the rest of their story than they ever dreamed possible. Her latest book, Adjusted Sales, What Does This Make Possible?, shows us that quite often it's the winds of change in which we find our true direction. Welcome, Kathi.
Well, thank you. It's my pleasure to be here.
Well, it's very interesting when you talk about adjusted sales, because I guess we're all adjusting ourselves as we go through life. So what was the inspiration behind your latest book?
I had three things that happened, in fairly rapid succession. And over the course of around 4 years, I went through empty nest, which, it doesn't sound like it's that big of a deal, and yet it's probably a bigger event than maybe we make room for it to be. And I've been a single parent, pretty much all my daughter's life. So I went through that. And then not long after that, I lost my executive position. I was working in a leadership role in corporate America. And in 2009, that, you go to work one day and they say, okay, we've redefined the organization and you're not in it. And so that came right on the heels of that. And then not long after that, I had been struggling with some health things and went to the doctor and, got the question, what do you know about hepatitis C? And so I ended up on a journey with being in treatment for hepatitis C. So each one of these was like a major shift, right? It just felt like a major shift in my footing. And it was like, okay, if this is happening to me and it's happening to everybody else, how do you stay steady in the midst of all of this stuff that's happening, this disruptive change? And what I really found was what looked like in the beginning looked like loss turned out to be anything but loss. It turned out to be opportunities and a move to a better life. And so that's where I came up with, instead of looking of it as, why is this happening? Instead saying, what does this make possible? So I just kind of coined it as saying I went from empty nest to empty job to empty health to the fullest life I could have imagined.
Wow, that's interesting. And you're right. I mean, all of this, sometimes everything goes smoothly for a period of time, and then all of a sudden everything hits you at one time, and you think, whoa, what's going on here? Were the stars not aligned, or what happened?
Exactly.
We talk about resilience in something like this, but you say that creative resilience is different than just resilience. So what do you mean by that?
Well, I think sometimes we think of resilience as how we respond to what's happening. So it's like, okay, whatever and you've heard this, we all have. It's not what happens to you, it's how you respond to it. And I believe true resilience is more than that. I believe true resilience is not how you respond to what happens, but what do you create from it? I think it's really important for us to stay in this create mode, because that's where we have that possibility mindset, right? Instead of just saying, oh, I gotta make it through this, right? What can you make from it? Because that's where, to me, the real gold lives. I mean, we talk about a lot of the things that happen to us, and some of this stuff is hard stuff, right? I mean, this is not fortune cookie wisdom. This is not, trying to make light of what people go through. Some of this is really hard stuff. And we really need to feel like we have some modicum of control in our lives. And the best way I know to feel like I have some control is that I'm in action. And for me to be in action, that means that I'm creating.
Got it. I understand. Yeah, I consider myself a very resilient person, but I'm not sure how creative I am, or maybe I just do it automatically. You know what I'm saying? In other words, when I think of things that happen to me, my first thought process is, how do I deal with this? How do I get out of it? Well, how can I make it better? I mean, I go through all of these different things. So maybe that's my creative response. I don't know. But you talk also about our inner circle and our community, and it's so important to have during change. And, I have to tell you that I've always I have lots of friends and I have even more acquaintances, but I've always considered myself kind of a loner, because when I make up my mind to do something, I just do it. So how does this all play into us, the inner circle and community aspect of things?
Well, you bring up a good point. I'm an introvert, and even though I'm not the classic what people think of as an introvert, what it basically means is I get my energy from more solitude and reflective things than I do with being with people. And so, sometimes I have to really force myself to go out among people. And the danger of that is that we also we can cut ourselves off. I'm also just crazy independent, and you're the same, right? I mean, when you have this independent spirit, you want to go out and do it on your own, and you kind of feel like other people, you could even have this sense of maybe other people might hold you back. And what I have found is when you have the right inner circle, when you're a member of the right communities, that all goes away. And why it's important is that sometimes in the midst of what's going on, we need to be able to get a different perspective. We need to be able to see something from something besides just our point of view, something that we can get feedback about ourselves, about the situation, about what can be done about it. And it's also about where we feel safe to ask for help. We're all going to need help at some point. We probably all need help a lot more than we ask for it. But certainly at some point, help becomes even more critical. If you have a safe place that you can ask for help, the hardest part of it is done. And that's where I think this idea of an inner circle and community matters. It's like when I lost my job, I'll just share this. When I lost my job, and it's when those kind of things happen, what ends up happening is you get escorted out of the building by security. It's not that you've done anything wrong. That's just the protocol, right? And I remember sitting in my car, because I'd been with the company for 17 years, and I remember putting my head down on the steering wheel and thinking to myself, who do I tell? And I had nobody to tell, because everybody that I was close enough to that would care or would understand the gravity of what had just happened to me was in the building they just escorted me out of. And that's when I realized that I had an inner circle problem. I had a community problem because I didn't have this circle around me that could help me see the whole of me, the whole of my life. And that's when I started joining masterminds outside of my industry, creating more positive associations and things that were going to help me just create that space. But it's not just about us. It's not just about what we gain from the community. It's also about what we give back to the community. So it puts you in a place where there's always this exchange.
It's interesting because, of course, I'm just the opposite. I'm an extrovert, and I'm always around people, and I meet people so easily. It's incredible. I mean, I just don't meet strangers. And so, and I've never worked for anybody. I mean, I've always created my own jobs, and I've been in business since I was 21. And so the fact of anybody escorting me out of a building, I would have, I just can't even anticipate that. But I do know that when I did some work for IBM, I was a contractor for them, and I was one of their last independent contractors in their Boca Raton office who taught assertive communication to their people. And I remember having to sign non-disclosures, and I had the same thing with AT&T when I did some work with them. And I thought, well, who would I tell any of this to anyway? And yet I thought, wow. And of course, that was the time when everybody, at least at IBM, was in a blue suit and a white shirt and a dark tie. It was really a uniform. But it is something to think about when you have nobody you can tell. I mean, I even tell my cats and dogs. I tell, whoever's going to listen, I'm going to tell. But you're right. I think community is very important. So you say there is a main reason that we know that we can thrive in change. So what is that main reason?
We already have done it. We've already done it. If any one of us, especially, I'm a grandmother. I'm in my 60s, so I've got a few miles under my belt. And one of the things that I always remind myself is, you can do this. You've already done stuff way tougher than this. You can do this, but we forget, right? Every time we come up against something that's changing, we think, oh, this is a change. This is hard. But change is good. Nobody wanted to stay in the first grade. We wanted to get to the second grade. Nobody wanted to stay in junior high. We wanted to get to high school. And we might have hated it after we got there, but we wanted to go there, right? We all wanted to get out on our own. We all wanted to make more money and get a better job. We all have wanted to get a new car. Now we all want to get a new phone every year. We already know that we can do this. And the other thing that we know, that when we say we've already done it, what we're really saying is we've already proven we can learn new things. I guarantee you there's at least a couple of dozen things that you do every day right now that you do differently than you did even a year ago. Because you've learned new ways to do it, you've gotten new technologies, you've gotten shortcuts, you've learned new hacks to get it done faster. We already know we can do this. And that, to me, is the secret sauce, is always remembering I can thrive and change because all that means is I have to be willing to learn. And I've already proven I can do that.
Yeah, that's so true. That is so true. So, I'm all about joy and happiness and things like that, yet I know there are people who always seem to be at doomsday's door. And I just wonder, why does helping others bring us joy? And does everybody do this? I'm not sure everybody does this.
Well, no, of course they don't. And that's part of the problem, right? Because we get so caught up in stewing in our own juices, so to speak, right? That we don't ever lift our eyes up. We don't ever look up. I kind of look at helping others as in tandem with gratitude. And I just don't know that you can help other people and not experience some level of gratitude. And that's where, to me, joy lives. You can't be grateful and angry in the same moment. They just can't occupy the same space. And when we're helping other people, there's very little opportunity for us to not have some level of gratitude and being thankful for the good in the world, the good in ourselves, the good in our life. And I just think it makes us feel better about things. And anything that lifts us out of that focus on what's wrong helps us create the ability to see what's right. I think that, like with gratitude, one of the things where people was like, you can't expect me to be grateful for this. Like, no, you're not understanding gratitude. If you think you have to be grateful for a specific thing, that's not gratitude. gratitude is just grace. Gratitude is just living in a state of grace and understanding that there is always something to be grateful for. It may not be the thing, right, that you're staring down. I mean, but sometimes we need to rest our eyes for a minute, rest our soul for a minute, and not look at that thing. And the easiest way to do that I have found in my own life and with some of the clients that I have worked with is to take our eyes completely off ourselves and go find somebody to help.
Yeah, when you take the emphasis off yourself, it sure makes a difference, that's for sure. So, but again, we do have limiting beliefs. We think we can or we can't do something. We think somebody will or won't help us in a different way. So what do you do about these limiting beliefs that you have?
Well, I think, when we talk about things like the show and things that you talk about of how do you live a regret-free life and how do you live with joy and how do you do all of that? And a part of that is living apart from what I call frustration or this idea we have about feeling stuck. And so when I'm feeling stuck, I know that it's coming from something that I'm limiting, not being limited for me, but limited by me. Okay. And the beliefs is the first one. Henry Ford, I think, is the one that gets credit for it. Whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right.
That's right. You did say that.
But it goes beyond that, because not only when we limit our beliefs, here's what happens. We also limit our choices. You think I have to do A or B. Well, maybe not. Maybe you could try H or you could try R. There's lots of choices out there. And I talk about it being either or, should be both or more. Instead of having this mindset of I have to do this or this, how could you do the both? Or how could you do even more than that? So I think the second thing we limit is the choices. And then going back to the thing we talked about before, the next thing I look at, where am I limiting myself, is in my circle. I might not have the right people in my circle. And I have no clue who said this first. It's been attributed to Zig Ziglar and Jim Rohn, a number of them. But, we are the average of the 5 people we spend the most time with. So if we limit our circle, then that's going to limit, our choices and what happens. And then the other one is practices. We limit ourselves because there are practices. Like this is where I stumble. I'll be candid and say this is the one where I stumble. Because if I have a health goal and I want to meet my goal and I'm getting stuck and I'm not moving the needle, it's probably because I'm limiting my daily practices. I'm not doing what I need to do every day. And then the last thing is purpose. I think sometimes we think too small. And so we start out with our vision and our purpose as being this small vision or purpose. And you know what? If that's what we set out to get, that's probably what we're going to get. So I think those are the things that really keep us from living to our full potential, and which to me is what living regret-free is all about, is every day living to the maximum potential I can in that day.
Well, you're right, Kathi. And, of course, a lot of it depends on when you talk about your circle, you talk about this. It's true, because if we don't have a broad enough circle or we don't have a large enough community, we are not exposed to all these different things, so that we don't know that there are other choices. So it's very relevant that we are a part of all that. So, I know you say that we should be practicing gratitude daily, and I try to do that. What I have a problem with is, they always say write down 5 things that you're grateful for at the end of the day, and they should be different every day. And I find myself being very repetitive. I mean, the things that I'm grateful for are very, in other words, I'll say my pets. I'm very grateful for my pets, and I'm grateful for them every day. And I might say a particular person that I've met, or it might be a particular thing that happened to me that day. But in most cases, out of the 5 things, 2 or 3 of them are the same every day. So I don't know where you stand on that, but I know that you say that we need to have routines, rituals, and habits to keep us centered. And I truly believe that, because it always amazes me, people who get a lot done and then they retire and they don't get anything done. and they say, well, I can't understand. How did I do all these things when I was working? It was because you were organized and you had a system for how you did everything. And now you've got all this free time and you're not systematized anymore. How do you feel about that?
Well, first, let me touch briefly on the whole idea of gratitude and tell you that I couldn't agree with you more. I think sometimes when we get in this routine of I got to write 5 things down every day that I'm grateful for, we're just like trying to think of a list to do. It's like a task we got to check off, right?
Right.
And I don't know how much we really feel gratitude. The idea here is not to write it down, although writing it down is helpful. I think the idea is to actually really feel it. I like to ask the question, what was good about today? Not necessarily, because if I say this was good today, I had a great lunch. I had a great conversation with my mom. My granddaughter called me. I had a really good session of writing on my book. What was good about today? I'm so thankful for the good things in my day. That's gratitude. It doesn't have to be a thing, or that it really just can be what was good about your day. I can remember the first time when I was first starting to start walking and try to get in a certain number of steps. It was really good if I met my step goal. I was thankful that I got to meet that goal. You can make this and expand this, and I think that's because it's really about what made you feel, where did you have the capacity to feel good about something today? And then what happens is you start looking for those moments. Instead of feeling like it's a task you got to do, now all of a sudden you start conditioning yourself. It's like you said in the beginning. You don't really think of it as creative resilience, but you do it anyway because it's how you're wired, right? So if you start wiring yourself to see the good in things, it's like Dennis Waitley says, when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. And I think that's a big piece of the gratitude. But let's talk for a minute about the routines and staying in action. I really believe that our choices live in our actions. And a lot of times when we find ourselves a bit befuddled and, at a crossroads or wherever, we're going through some change and going through something hard, when we have those daily rituals and routines and things that we do, it keeps us moving. And I think that's really important. It's really important for us to keep moving and keep going through life for a number of reasons, but just keeping ourselves in action. And then also, we make decisions every day, and we know we have to make decisions every day. But this whole idea about decision fatigue is very real. We won't get into all of that now, but I can just tell you that the more you keep yourself going, the less, and it's more systematized, and you keep those routines going, you're not really having to make those decisions, which frees up your energy to focus on where your real decisions are for you right then in the middle of change. But I also think the more normal you keep yourself in your life, the more normal people the more normal people will respond to you. I'm sure if you've gone through any disruptive change, you've lost a job or whatever, all of a sudden you feel like, where did everybody go, right?
It's
they don't
true.
They don't know how to deal with you.
Exactly.
Yeah,
that's exactly.
They don't know what
right.
to say to you. But if you keep acting, if you keep doing the things you do, if you keep showing up for the things that you need to show up for, that helps them be able to be connected with you.
Well, I'll tell you something, Kathi. This has all been very interesting. We only have a couple minutes left, so I want to make sure people know how to get in touch with you. Where is the best place for people to find you? Do you have something special that you'd like to offer to them? Tell us a little bit about where to find you.
The best place to find me is my website, which is my company name, which is McKinsey Circle. It's named after my great-grandmother, Molly McKinsey, which is a fun story we'll have to share one day. But it's MACKENZIE, Circle, CIRCLE, McKinseyCircle.com is the website. You can connect with me on all the social media platforms right from the site. That's the easiest way to do it. But what I'd like to invite our listeners to do is to join me. We have a Possibility Seekers newsletter that goes out every week. We talk about great books. We talk about insightful things that are going on in the world and things about what it means to be a possibility seeker and seeking out those things out there that are good, and you can get on the mailing list for that by going to MackenzieCircle.com/possibility_seekers, and that will get you to the page where you can.
Fantastic. Remember, guys, you're going to Mackenzie, MACKENZIE Circle, CIRCLE.com. That's her website. That's where to find her. You'll find her social media information there, and you can subscribe to her newsletter by going to MackenzieCircle.com/possibility seekers. So very, very good. Well, Kathi, thank you so much for being with us today. We really appreciate it. And hopefully you'll have some possibility seekers who sign up and get in touch with you for your newsletter. That sounds wonderful. Thanks so much for being with us today.
My pleasure.